Olson.
Here.
Valerie Penny Hernandez. Here. David Seaman.
Present.
And if we could all stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have public participation and recognition, public comments. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. Do we have any comments? Okay. Board committee reports and correspondence.
I have some correspondence. So last week we were honored to take part of social justice camp, myself and Sarah Moses. It was a camp that starts Tuesday night and it ends Friday evening. It is a very intense camp by all means. It's intense on all levels, but I mean the commitment from teachers is very, very much so extensive, right? From 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, every single night. So we were able to take part. We will be creating a whole report, attaching the PowerPoints and everything, all the information for all the board members, so each of you can review those and really just get to see what we got to see, I guess, to some degree. And if you want to join next year, you're more than welcome to. I know NIU has asked us if we want to go to this book club. They're holding this. It's directly linked to this book, so I'll pass this around so you get to see it. But we will be sharing a more detailed report of everything that we got to see, experience, hear, suggestions, comments, everything, so that as a board, we're fully informed of everything that they were suggesting. So I'll pass this around. I'll start with Jeremy. And if there's any questions, we're going to be sending that information to Melissa so that you can review and take a look.
Are there any other reports or correspondence? Okay.
Oh my God, it is.
While we're passing around, I'm going to move on to presentations. So we have the diversity plan implementation update by Dr. Jenny Huber, Ms. Andrea Mitchell, and Dr. Vicki Huskin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I had it up and I don't know where it disappeared to. So, on June 5th of 2018, the board approved a diversity plan for District 428, and Andrea, Vicki, and myself really just wanted to let you know where we're at currently in terms of implementation. Give you a little bit of history as to why we have a diversity plan. And you can find the diversity plan on our district website under the community tab. It's there. It's translated into Arabic and Spanish as well. But in the 2000s, there were 3 different times when instances occurred at DeKalb High School where there was the opportunity to really make some changes. And I was there during those first two times that something happened, and then here at the Ed Center with the last occurrence in the spring of 2016. And in 2005 and 2009, and again in 2016, in 2005 and 2009, data was collected. We looked at the data, but we didn't do anything with it. In 2016, when the occurrence happened at the high school, there was I reached out to NIU, and through the diversity office at NIU, they provided social justice educator training. Andrea was a part of that. There were 14 of us who spent 6 weeks in total, over 15 hours of being trained so that we are social justice educator trained. From that point, we started having conversations with the superintendent then, as well as with the board, about the need to have a diversity plan and how we could go about doing that. And so requests for proposals were done, and the board selected NIU to partner with us so that we could begin that process. It was kind of a lengthy process because we wanted to make sure we were doing it well and doing it right. And so under the direction of Dr. Cohen from Northern Illinois University in the College of Education, and then also with Dr. J.Q. Adams, Professor Emeritus at Western Illinois University, we started having conversations about what this needed to look like. And the board approved data collection and then professional development. So that data collection was very extensive. It took over 6 months to collect all the data. And from elementary through secondary, students were talked to, students were surveyed. Parents were talked to, parents were surveyed. Staff, and it didn't matter who you were in the staff in the building, you are part of that information data gathering process. Stakeholders in the community were a part of that process as well. So once all the data was gathered, it was analyzed, and then a presentation was made to the board in terms of what those 7 recommendations are. And so the goals that you are going to see tonight are really the 7 recommendations that came out of the data that was collected and analyzed. So the first goal, or the first recommendation, which we turned into a goal, and it's also important that you know that when the diversity plan was written, there were 2 more board members that were part of that process. There were parents that were part of that process, plus staff that was a part of that process. So there were a mix of voices that were being brought to the table. So the first recommendation was to implement strategic professional development on equity, inclusion, cultural competency, and responsiveness education. And so where are we at with that today? Our Board of Education needs to be trained on not only disability inclusion, but just inclusion and equity in general, nonviolent, compassionate communication, and being culturally responsive. Cohort leader training. So a part of the professional development plan that the board approved prior to approving the diversity plan was that there would be a cohort of teachers and assistants that would go through training, and those would be the leaders within the building that would then kind of help a train the trainer kind of model. That has occurred with nonviolent compassionate communication. So that piece is done. In working with HR, Sarah, and her department, the recruitment committee has created a diverse hiring plan, and that is what is used to help guide the hiring practices that we have in the district. Many, many, many professional opportunities have occurred, and not just this past year, but once that small group of us went through that social justice educator training, we just started meeting as a group, and that began in 2017. And we decided that we needed to push out professional development every month. And so as a group, we would come up with what that would look like. It was meant to be engaging, interactive dialogue. And so we would do them together as a leadership team, kind of talk about, do we need to change anything? And then each leader, meaning the administration within that building, would take that back to their buildings, and in a faculty meeting, they would have those professional development, social justice activity opportunities. So that's just one example of what has happened over the last couple of years. On Institute Days, we have had our students speak. Our LGBTQ students have been part of a panel that have spoken. We bring in people from the outside. We have families living here in the DeKalb community, undocumented families. They have taken a great risk and spoken to us at Institute Day, very powerful. So those are the kinds of things that we have done, along with Dr. Cohen and Dr. Adams being a part of that too. In the fall of 2018, we also hosted a community forum so that people could come, ask questions. It was extremely well attended. So that's goal one, where we're at with goal one.
Goal 2 was to develop our welcoming process. Some of the data showed that our community and our families are feeling not welcomed when they come into some of our buildings. And so as building leaders, we had that conversation first about talking with our secretaries, talking with the faces that people see first, and what does that look like to welcome all families. And so that was one of our first conversations. And then we met with our mentoring committee, which is very strong. We're also a part of that. And myself and Brad Vest, who is an instructional coach at the high school, and Dr. Huber did some social justice training with our new teachers who come in and our student teachers who come in. And so we wanted to make sure that they were aware that we do have a plan and that they got a taste of that cultural competency piece before they step into our classrooms and figure out how we do business in District 428. We also, out of the data, also came the Community Inclusion Advisory Group, which we have not started yet. There has been some great conversation around that. We do have 4 parents that are on our Social Justice League. And then I had some parents who actually came to Social Justice Camp that reached out to me, and they want to be a part of starting that. So that is a huge endeavor, but we are looking to hopefully get that going, because we know that our parent university for our bilingual parents has been happy and it's been very successful. So we want to kind of map behind that how they're doing it. And so getting some parents on board has been difficult, but they're starting to come now and be a part of that conversation. We also have had some preliminary conversations about having a parent university for African American parents. I have 2 parents who went to social justice camp that are interested in helping head that. We had some data pulled right before we left for school, out of school, I should say, for the summer, to pilot a mentoring program for our African American students at the elementary level that are struggling to connect to the school environment. And so I'll be working with Vicki and with Tim and our social justice group to get that started, because we know from the data that was collected, there's a disconnect with our students of color. So those are the things that we're currently working on.
Is that like a parent-teacher organization that you're talking about, that they're going to organize?
It would be more of a parent group, different than our PTAs and our PTOs. Most of the time our PTAs and our PTOs do a lot of things within the school as far as fundraising and programs and events, but this would be specifically geared around that connecting piece for our students and getting parents involved. So it would be similar to a PTA or PTO, but just serving kind of a different purpose.
Meeting a school at a school facility type situation, or
Not
outside?
necessarily.
Okay,
Yep, we haven't gotten that far,
Can
but,
we try to hold our questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
that's just so that it flows better.
okay. And then number 3, strengthening district and school unity. This also came out in the data that there needed to be more unity. And so one of the things that we had to do this year when we were having events, when we were having celebrations, we had to communicate those things to Jamie and let him know what we were having. So a lot of our celebrations really were around our PBIS quarterly meetings. We tried not to reinvent the wheel. Our teachers have very full plates. And so the things that we were trying to do were around things that are already in the system that we have. And so we wanted to make sure that we're bringing unity and celebrating all of our students and what they bring to the table, which may look different than what we've normally done, but we've been working on that also.
Okay, goal number 4, emphasize nonviolent and compassionate communication. This is a very key piece within the diversity plan. Nonviolent and compassionate communication is a system of communication that breaks down preconceived barriers, defensiveness, and really restructures how you listen to others as they speak to you, as well as how you respond. In the diversity plan, it explicitly describes that assistant certified staff and administrators receive 15 hours of training. And that started in February at the February Institute, and then it carried through into April. I was able to participate in about 2/3 of this training, and I have to tell you, it is life-changing because the process, it's also a lifetime of learning how to do it too. But the whole premise is that if we are looking to build a community of unity and understanding and suspending judgment and encouraging curiosity, we have to, in essence, really take a harder look in terms of how we literally communicate with each other, and in particular, as we create those classroom communities, how we communicate with our students as well as parents. Very, very powerful on the idea. And each building sent a cohort of teachers, assistants, and a building administrator. So that string of training has completed. 4 staff will then attend a very intensive 5-day training. This summer, it's taking place up at Lake Geneva at Williams Bay. Yeah, Williams Bay. And then again, the intention is to take this training, integrate it with PBIS, and then roll out the plan as needed. And we'll come back to that nonviolent piece a little bit later. The 5th goal, develop a plan to implement a 2-way dual language program. The 2-way dual language program will actually begin with kindergarten at Cortland Founders and Little John, not this year, but the following year. But for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, the curriculum work and professional learning has been taking place. I know that the previous board, Amy, gave multiple reports in terms, Crook gave multiple reports in terms of how the plan was going to be rolled out, what the curriculum work is looking like, what the professional development for the teachers is looking like. So that is going to definitely get launched in 2020, 2021. Bilingual middle school implemented Spanish language arts for the first time this year. Up until now, there really was no bilingual program per se at the middle school. So students would come through elementary in the bilingual program. There would be almost like a pause at the middle school level, and then would pick back up at the high school. So again, that was a 2-year process of Amy working very hard with a variety of different resources and facilities, as well as working very intensely with our team at Huntley Middle School. That was rolled out this year, and there's a pretty extensive plan in terms of continuing to develop that Spanish language arts for next year. In addition, this coming year, 1920, an ESL bilingual program will be added to Clinton Rosette Middle School beginning with 6th grade, and then it'll roll up one more year with each passing year. Our numbers have grown significantly, as you all know. particularly over the last 5 years. Huntley, quite frankly, couldn't continue to house the entire program, and we had a growing number of refusals coming from families whose homeschool should have been Clinton Rosette and didn't want to give up Clinton Rosette, and they were refusing services so they could stay there. So with Amy putting this piece in place, it kind of all goes back to what this whole diversity plan is about. We are molding programs and in supports to the community as those needs present themselves. Very excited about that lesson. Goal 6, implement courageous leadership education. And I left my book in my office. There's a very important book that was recommended and is part of the diversity plan, and it's called Excellence Through Equity. What's very powerful about this book, by the way, is that the opening introduction is actually written by Desmond Tutu, and then he speaks to the message of the entire book. It's a series of case studies of where different school districts, or sometimes even individual schools, have had to show some tremendous, courageous leadership to shift that needle and change to respond to the needs of equity within either the four walls of their building or within the confines of the district. Jenny and Andrea and I began the book study with this book this past year. We've hit a pause. I think it was in March, and so it's been somewhat suspended, but we will pick that back up in the fall, probably go back a couple chapters and then continue that book study with all leadership. In addition, as part of the diversity plan, you as a board will do a book study with this book as well. And I can tell you, it's a very compelling book. It will strike you at your core, and it really defines what courageous leadership can look like.
And then the final recommendation and goal is a very encompassing goal, promoting and prioritizing school safety. And this is really where lines become very blurred, and the social emotional plan that we have in place and the diversity plan, it's really difficult to separate them out at this particular point because, again, that importance of inclusivity, equity, being culturally responsive is really the heart of the social emotional plan as it is with the diversity plan. So that is something that happened this year. Last year was creating that plan, but the implementation piece is occurring. Also that PBIS piece, that is very much a part of, again, putting into action, really making that nonviolent, compassionate communication come alive when we're interacting and speaking not only with our colleagues, but with our students as well. And then at the high school specifically, they are piloting a social emotional support called Why Try, as well as making sure that our psychs, our social workers, have been trained in trauma-informed intervention so that they not only can support our students, but also support their colleagues in the classroom with student behaviors that we are seeing. And then just a follow-up piece. So in having conversations with Dr. Cohen towards the end of the school year, and he and Amy Luckner and I met, and he is going to be doing some follow-up data collection. He will be submitting the research proposals that we ask that when anybody's going to do research in our district, he will be doing that along with a team of people, a couple of other faculty at NIU, but they really want to take a look at this nonviolent, compassionate communication because in terms of really making an impact on our students in the classroom, the implementation of this, they really want to take a look at that because, again, the implementation of nonviolent, compassionate communication is going to get at the heart of that equity and inclusion piece when we really think about where our students are coming from and what they need from us emotionally. And so he's going to want to do some data collection and would like to probably start that in the fall. So once he has submitted the papers that District 428 needs on our end, and then we reach out to whatever building it is that he's going to be doing that research in, then that's something that the data will start being collected so that we can look at the impact of that nonviolent compassionate communication as we move forward. So that's a follow-up piece. Questions?
Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, well, it's a recent question from what you just said. Could you, those words I don't think they convey the meaning that you have for them. Nonviolent, compassionate communication. I'm not sure I understand. Can you rephrase that in such a way that I might be able to understand it? I don't know what that is.
Sure. So, for example, I'm in the classroom, and I have a student that is really struggling emotionally and perhaps may say something that's extremely inappropriate. And so rather than rushing to judgment and being particularly harsh with that student, it's really getting at the root cause of why that student is acting the way that they're acting. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be a consequence for that behavior. It goes, nonviolent compassionate communication also goes hand in hand with restorative practices, which means that we get at the root of where that student is coming from, what's going on in their home life, what's going on in an environment around them that's causing he or she to behave in that way. We get at the root cause of that, and then we work to figure out what's the best way to interact with you, to restore the damage that's been done with relationships, and to really do it in a very nonviolent, compassionate way.
Yeah. On the heels of Jeff's question, I want to go back to the board getting trained. So we're supposed to get training on disability inclusion, inclusion, equity, nonviolent, compassionate communication, and being culturally responsive. When can we look forward to those types of opportunities? How does that?
So Dr. Cohen is currently in Uruguay and Fulbright Scholarship, and I communicated with Sam, and so he has reached out, and so once he gets back in early August, he and Dr. Adams will.
Yeah, we'll
be
be
in contact.
scheduling it sometime in the fall. So we've been in communication so far.
But when can we do, I mean, do we need Dr. Cohen for the book study? Is that who's gonna lead that book study, or how is, because it's part of the social justice plan. So if we're required to be reading a certain book, how will that be conducted, and how are we supposed to come together? You know, especially as, you know, all of our sessions and meetings have to be held in open session. Unless it's a board retreat.
We'll have to discuss that, because even a board retreat, we can't, unless the IESA or another approved group is running it, and it has to have there's specific reasons that it can be closed sessions. I'll have to think about that. I'll have to get a hold of IESA and find out.
Yeah.
May I ask a question about the social emotional piece? Does the Caring Schools community, oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see it. Does the Caring Schools community fit in with that? It fits in with that also then? Because that's something that was just adapted, right? Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, so back a ways, you guys were talking about a mentorship program that involved parents. And I think mentorship programs were great. However, how's the messaging being controlled, and how are the mentors being selected? Is that something I assume you're putting some care into, or is it being addressed by the parents? Like, how exactly are we involved if it's outside the school? I'm just curious as far as that goes.
So Dr. Bernice Edgehill-Walden, who is the head of diversity and equity at NIU, she's actually a Brooks parent. So she's going to be helping us to facilitate that and figure out what that should look like, since it's our first time. Then we'll also be talking with parents and other stakeholders who are involved in our,
And I can speak to the VPAC
yeah.
part. So
we're at the preliminaries. Like, we're just getting people who are interested. We reached out to her a couple weeks ago, and so she's been gone doing some stuff for her own job, but she is going to be the person that will help us do that. And the Center for Black Studies, with Dr. Joe Glenn.
Will it run like VPAC? Like
That is the goal, to run it like that.
Okay.
You know, it's been successful, and so we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We just need to know how to get it started and
Similar to the parent university.
yes. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. Thank you. And now we have digital scoreboards presentation by Mr. Peter Goff. This is a discussion and information item.
I stand back here, I don't want to be on camera. Thank you so much for having me in today. It has been a whirlwind of a year, and it's been a great year that we've had so far, and on my side of the building. But basically what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to eliminate our student athletes having to fundraise all the time. And we think that this is one step to start making that happen. And if you would go on and Google Barrington High School, there's, I'm trying to think of the other school that, Rock Island High School, who I kind of based a lot of this off, is that they're doing advertising through our scoreboards. At my old district, right before I left, they had a scoreboard where they're going to do it. And basically the best thing about this is that some of the money, it's going to be between the Booster Club and the athletic department, and the taxpayers will not pay 1 cent to get that. So that's the best thing about it. And what it will do is that, like I've told other groups and when I've talked to our sports boosters, is that we really don't want our student athletes to be salespeople, you know, because every single spring people raise their hand, cookie dough, flags, water bottles, and all that. And when I brought it up to my coaches, I go, how many people are tired of fundraising? Everyone shot their hand up right away. And basically, that's what my job is to do. They're to coach our student athletes and do that, not worry about getting everybody out there. Because the community is getting hit 12,000 ways, especially through all of the other organizations. And what we're trying to do is peel that back and make sure that we can do it. Where another thing is that we're kind of keeping up with everybody else of what they're doing. So this is going to be a great thing. We are taking baby steps. I met with my executive board with the sports boosters today, right before we came here. They're all on board. So all we're asking for is the okay that we're able to put this up onto our district. We met with Mr. Bale, Mrs. Carson, and everybody to get all of the logistics about the power and the fiber optics, and everything's on board. So we kind of have pretty much everything in line. We're just looking to make that next step. And we're shooting to try to do this during the fall out at the stadium and in the Dayton Gymnasium. I've been out already kind of talking to people, and as of right now, I have like $21,000 already committed. I have 50,000 in private donations that I'm talking to, and I'll know more about that on Monday night. So if you kind of look at what I have already in a 5-year, we're already at $105,000 that we can have, that the Booster Club can split and we can split. What we're trying to do is have the Booster Club, instead of spending on uniforms and stuff like that, that my office takes care of that, and they can get the real nice things, kind of with the PLC, the things you have to have, and the things that you would like to have, that you want to know. And I'm going to take care of the meat and potatoes of everything, and they get to swoop in and go, oh, sure, I'll do that, and give them the nice fancy things that we want to enhance our school here. So it's been 8 years. I'm a person that, I'm never satisfied. I'm always working to try to upgrade things. Like my wife says, I got 50,000 things going on in my head. Mark Sykes says I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea and away we go. So this is something that I thought about right when I first got here, and with the help with Jeremy Morton, who put all this together, one of our assistant coaches and one of our student assistants, we kind of mapped this out and did the graphics on there. So, and another thing that we're doing is that I was able to purchase 4 more Pixelot cameras. And what that is unmanned cameras. We don't have to have anybody like this. All I have to do is punch it in, and it comes on and it automatically comes on. Out at the stadium in Dayton, now we're gonna put one in the field house to where we can get a lot of badminton games, all the lower level games, baseball, softball, and one that we put, and I talked to one of our swim parents that we're gonna put one in over at the swimming pool at Huntley. So all those things will be live streamed. The only thing that we won't be able to live stream, I'm still working on it though, I've got a couple ideas, is golf, cross country, and boys and girls tennis. And bowling, we're not able to do, but don't worry, I'll come up with something to get that. So we want to make sure everyone's getting covered, because if you look at a lot of things, a lot of people are able to live stream. I think we ran it last year on our very first home football game. When we first bought them, I think we had over 400 views. One was from the Czech Republic and one was from, I believe, Italy. They, on my Twitter account, they found out where to go. So there's just a lot of great things that we can do to promote our student athletes. And the other thing that's going to be really good about it is that this thing rolls pretty well. I think we can do it manually, but we can start live streaming everything in the auditorium. We want to do that. I want to get it to where the Pixelot cameras are just like this. We put it on there, we have plays, and then people, some people that, the grandma and grandpas and all that are down in Florida or Arizona, they're not going to miss a beat. I'm already looking, my grandkids live in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. I'm making sure that they get Pixelots, so I can't leave, so I don't have to come back and watch. I can do it from home. So that's one thing that we're really trying to do. When we've done this before, a ton of kids that have graduated and are at college, they get that card and they sit and watch the games on their phones, wherever they're at. So there's a lot of exposure to be had here. You can look at my piece of paper. This is all the businesses that I've called already and everything that I have, and there's still a lot more to go. So a lot of people goes, don't you get the summer off? I just laugh at them. No, we're moving on. Yes.
Are you done with your presentation though?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could have told me stop.
So I have one question. Well, two. Is this going to be split with the music department? Is that what we're saying?
It goes in the athletics activities account, and the other portion goes to boosters.
The part
Are
of
we saying
the
like a 50-50, like they're going to be sharing it pretty much?
the
or-
band, the marching band is kind of under my
orchestra.
umbrella, but we'll work with stuff. Mr. Lundin has been invited. We are going to reach out and do all that. My basically goal is to try to, what we're trying to do at Premier Night with the Booster Club is that the best thing about it is that we're going to be in school week. I want every activity, whoever, any club to come out and be recognized at Premier Night, and I'll be sending stuff like that. But yes, I will work, and I've done that this year. I've had the Spanish club come up, hey, Mr. Goff, we need such and such money through my advertising that I did in our booklets last year. Do you have something like 400? Sure. I've reached out and worked with all the activities as well.
And they also have the opportunity during games like that, and will do host concessions, and they get a percentage of the take from that, and a lot of the clubs do that during the year as well. So there's other opportunities.
And I know that part, but I know that orchestra, I'm looking at it from like a whole holistic perspective, because orchestra and band and, some of these other activities to some degree do fulfill that. Maybe they're not involved in athletic sports, but they are involved in, and this is just as much tedious for them as far as fundraising goes. So my question was more related to, is this going to be split up in a way where everyone can access, regardless of whether it's directly in the athletic department or not? And I think you answered that pretty well. So you do have a partnership working directly with them.
Basically, when they come and ask me, I don't ever want to say no. And I've had orchestra, I've had band, I've had the choir. They've come and asked for things. All of the other, French club, Spanish club. I know we gave money to give to families in need at Christmas. We gave them money. So I don't sit there and hoard it. I share it with everybody.
Instruments seem to be a continual source of, they get older and they go away, and those people out there, it's an expensive thing.
Well, and that's the thing that I ask every single group that I'm in charge of, and is to give me a budget item so we can find out how much they are. and Mr. Lundin sent me, and, you know, those are the types of things that I'm gonna try to do with this money, is to, you know, so a lot of people start at zero and they go out and fundraise so they can pay things. I don't want that. That's what this is, and a couple other things that we have to do to try to alleviate that. It might not happen in a year, but it's gonna happen.
So tonight, what is being asked of the board is, again, the digital scoreboards that the Booster Club is proposing, that they fundraise and eventually mount at the stadium and in the Dayton, that the board give their blessing to move ahead with this project, and that, again, that this isn't district money, that it's the Booster Club, and at some point, then those will be gifted to the district.
Yes.
Absolutely. Great, thanks. Thanks for all the work. We're gonna have to vote on it.
One more question.
Is there any criteria for who can advertise?
I'll take anybody. And believe me, I've called,
There is criteria.
Okay.
Be careful.
oh, well, I didn't mean it that way, yeah. I've done this for a lot of years. I've fundraised for over 25 years, so, yes,
Obviously, it has to be school appropriate.
yes.
So you're saying like liquor or any of that,
We couldn't
Yeah.
advertise,
Yeah.
we couldn't advertise, you know, Budweiser or, you know, some liquor company, no.
Things
But
that
let's
are
just say
hypothetically, let's just say hypothetically, like a pub or like Fatty's, let's just say, they could because, but
Well, they're a restaurant.
It's a restaurant.
but just the bar itself, you wouldn't, is that what? That is a good
We
question.
would try, I mean, I've come into that, and every school board is different. And there's ways to do it, and I would not do anything without, I mean, I would take it to Jamie and say, hey, what do you think? I mean, so,
And if it
I'm
was
not gonna-
questionable, then I would come to the board with it.
yes. So that's what we would do. I've done it long enough to know where I can do it and where I can't.
That's a good question.
Is everyone? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for all your effort.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's a nice piece.
Yes, very nice. Next we have the non-business consent agenda, that the board of education, items A through E. Is there a motion?
So moved.
second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call?
Jeff Holgren,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yeah.
Victoria Newport. Yes. Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour.
Yes.
And in that consent agenda, we just approved the employment of Robin Timmerman to be the new principal at Pioneer School. I'll put you on the spot. You want to say anything?
Well, I'm
That's
just,
what they did. to
I
me,
know.
so-
I'm just thankful and really grateful for the opportunity to be in DeKalb School District and then also in a principal leadership position here at Tyler. Got to spend the day there today, and it's a beautiful building. I got to meet a lot of staff and had an opportunity to really kind of take everything in, and I'm even more excited after that today. So
Thank you so much.
I will also point out that we have also approved the employment of middle school assistant principal Nicolia Stallings, who I understand was in the district prior to me being here. So welcome back, Nicolia.
And next we have the business consent agenda, which is an action item that the Board of Education approved the business consent agenda items A through D. Is there a motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call. Oh, you have a question? A through D. Okay, so roll call, please.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Holgren,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid.
Yes. And now we have business and finance. We have the operating fund balance policy recommendation. Ms. Cynthia Carpenter, this is an action item that the Board of Education approve FFAC's recommended changes to the operating fund balance policy as attached. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Are there any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez. Yes. David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes.
And textbook budget expansion, Ms. Cynthia Carpenter and Dr. Jenny Huber. This is an action item that the Board of Education approve increasing the textbook budget by $120,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
Next, we have subject C, food service contract renewal for fiscal year 2019-2020. Aramark Educational Services LLC, Ms. Cynthia Carpenter. This is an action item that the Board of Education approve the contract renewal agreement for food management services for the period beginning July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 with Aramark Educational Services LLC. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Valerie Pena Hernandez.
Yeah.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson.
Yes.
Next, we have the new business administration. A, destruction of closed session recordings. This is an action item that the Board of Education approved the destruction of the February 23rd, 2016 through December 5th, 2017 closed session recordings. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez.
No.
And then item B, additional 1.0 FTE for fifth grade intensive, Miss Christy Meyer. This is an action item that the Board of Education approved the hire of a special education teacher 1.0 and a paraprofessional 1.0 to staff an additional intensive fifth grade classroom for the 2019-2020 school year. Is there a motion? I'll second. Is there discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Jeff Albrecht,
No.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
No.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour.
Yes.
Next is the intensive math materials adoption for grades 4 through 8. Ms. Christy Meyer, action item that the Board of Education approved the adoption of Do the Math for intensive grades 4 through 5 and number worlds for grades 6 through 8. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid.
Yes. Item D, approval of the revisions to the 2019-2020 student handbook, Mr. Tim Vincent. This is an action item that the Board of Education approved the recommended changes to the 2019-2020 parent-student handbook. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes.
And then item E, school resource officer proposal with the City of DeKalb Superintendent Jamie Craven. This is an action item that the Board of Education enter into an agreement with the City of DeKalb and DeKalb Police Department to add a third school resource officer. Is there a motion?
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
And with that, we have the adjournment. The meeting will be adjourned. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.